we think that it ought to be. And we're moving and we are pressing forward with that. Okay? When we're being willing, we're at a point where that will be suspended a little bit. Okay? When we're willing, we're not so much determined on getting our way. When we're willing, there's something that opens up. There's a receptivity that's there. There is there's a spaciousness, is what I would call it. There's an energetic expansion. When we get very willful, there's a restriction. We can feel it. It's a constriction in our body temples even. It's like the jaws clenching and and you can't sleep at night, and it's in your voice, it's in your affect, it's in everything, right? I know, because I've spent a good portion of my life being willful. I remember, I hear my father now, "You just a stubborn old mule." And I remember, "Well, she gets it from you." Yes. I'm sure some of you will relate. Willing is something else. Willing is something else. And we often misunderstand what it is that we're being willing about. So, I get these spiritual downloads. And some of these are in the forms of letters that are in that series, Letters from the Infinite. And there are these definitions that aren't published yet. Sometimes I bring them in to the service. And in these definitions, it's always a certain formula. It takes a spiritual quality, and it shows that there's something we bring to the table that meets something that's already there and describes the activity that has to take place. So the spiritual qualities are already there. They're already there. It's not a question of where do I get love, how do I get peace, how do I get faith. This stuff is already here, but we have to do something to experience it. Catch that. It's all there, we just miss it because we're not doing what we need to do to be able to experience it. So it says this about alignment. This is the definition that comes to these spirit letters about alignment. It says alignment is where your inner activity becomes one with my outer volition. Where your inner activity becomes one with my outer volition. Now that word volition means choice. It means will. It is the capacity to make a decision for oneself without it being influenced by anybody else. Sometimes that term is used in legal stuff. Did you do this on your own volition? Were you conscious of what you were doing? You weren't doing this under duress. You weren't doing this under stress. You weren't doing this because you were being forced into it or whatever. But volition is that capacity that we have to make choices, to set things into motion. Volition would be another synonym for will. Like, do we have free will? So alignment is when your inner activity becomes one with my outer will. So I want to talk about that inner and an outer for a moment, because we get mixed up on this in terms of alignment. The way most of us do alignment is this. We have an outer will, and we want God to bring some inner activity to fulfill our outer will. I'm going to set the agenda about what I think has to happen. Snap, snap, God. Get with the program. You know, what do you have to do to bring this thing to me? Yes? Okay. That's backwards. That's backwards. In that, we're not bringing the interactivity. Okay. We are filled with angst, worry, concerns, judgments, resentments, doubts, fears. That's an inner activity that's still going on within us. Yet there's someplace else we're trying to get to. We're bringing an inner activity of lack, of limitation, and I have an outer will about prosperity. I have an inner thing about judgment and condemnation and estrangement, and I've got this outer will about an unconditionally loving relationship. I've got this inner activity of I'm a failure, I've messed up, I'm dried up, I'm too old, I'm too young, I'm too fat, I'm too small, I'm too black, I'm too gay, I'm too straight, I'm too drunk, whatever that is. That somehow or another, it can't happen for me, but I'm gonna hope beyond that. No. That's not the alignment. The alignment is not you trying to get the universe to override your flaws. That's not the alignment. The alignment isn't you trying to get God to bring you stuff in spite of the fact that you know you ain't right. You know you're not surrendered. You know some of that stuff you don't even want. Come on. There's a lot of stuff sometimes I didn't even want it. I just didn't want you to have it first. Stuff I wasn't even ready for. But I didn't want to look like I was the one late. Now you can do that if you want to. We do it all the time. But where does it get you? It doesn't get us to peace. It doesn't get us to power. It doesn't get us to a sense of abundance or prosperity. It just keeps us on this little treadmill. We're like the little hamster going round and round. When your inner activity becomes one with my outer volition, my outer will. See, you say, well, what is this will? How do you know what this outer will is? We live in a self-organizing, self-governing universe that is a unitary wholeness, and it is never acting against itself. It's never dividing itself up. It's never trying to separate itself from anything or anyone. Like it says in Scripture, the sun makes its light to shine upon the just and the unjust. The wind isn't deciding it's not going to blow over here because you're standing there. Nature's not going, oh, I hate you. You started all these forest fires last year, so I'm going to show you I'm not going to grow another thing ever. Forest isn't doing that. Music's not saying, nope, I don't like all this hip-hop stuff. That's just a bunch of noise. What is this punk rock stuff? And what are you doing kicking guitars? Nope. I'm not going to show up unless you go back to classical. Act like you got some sense. Nope. That's not what's happening. That's not what's happening. Life keeps being life. if we don't get in the way, it all works out. This planet is a perfect biosphere. If we don't mess it up, it's perfectly fine. There's no evil in the world. The only evil you will ever find is in the human heart. You take people out of the equation, there's no evil. There's no evil in the ocean or evil in the mountaintops or evil in the desert. You can't find evil without people. Because it's just what we do when we don't know who we are. Evil isn't the measure of our goodness or our badness. Evil is the measure of our ignorance. It's the measure of our estrangement. It's a measure of our unwillingness to shift and to know that we are one with the only thing that is. Everything in nature tends toward healing. Everything. That its natural propensity is restoration. And that includes you. Gardens, they work it out. We say survival of the fittest, and we think that's dog eat dog, but that's not even what Darwin said. What Darwin said is there's this natural evolutionary thing that happens, and that the species that adapt, the ones that know how to live and to grow and to survive in community, are the ones that continue to thrive. It's not this dog eat dog, who's up or who's down. We get into that notion as human beings of supremacy. And we create this hierarchy. So we put human beings above the plant, above everything. And then we do a pecking order within that. These human beings are over these human beings, and these are over these, and these are over these, and blah, blah, blah. And it's just a construct. It has absolutely nothing to do with reality. And when we are willful, we have forgotten that we are part of the fundamental harmony of life. When we are willful, we are in fear. When we are willful, we are afraid of the universe. We are afraid of life. We are afraid that somehow or another, if I don't get in there and I don't try to control it and I don't make it happen, I'm going to lose. Or I'm not going to have it. Or my needs aren't going to be fulfilled. Or everybody's going to get ahead of me. Or I'm going to left behind. Or it's not going to happen. Da, 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 da. Take a chill pill, baby. Just breathe, boo. Just... You ain't all that. The universe isn't going all out of its way just to mess you up. It's not. It's not. Does bad stuff happen? Yes, some stuff happens. But it isn't because there's a little evil machine out there trying to make it happen. Now, I know that's heresy in some circles, particularly in my little Church of God in Christ. Fundamentalist, evangelical, charismatic, Pentecostal background. I would burn at the stake if I went into my Pentecostal church and said there was no devil. Then I just got to burn. There's no devil. There's not a separate evil entity. There are not two gods. There's only one God. And even if you study the theory of the devil, Lucifer was an angel in heaven. Even Lucifer was part of the one. And in the story, Lucifer just thought he was all that and could live without God, for which he got cast out of heaven. It's a metaphor. We're all in heaven. And the moment that you think that you can live out on your own, you are cast out of the garden and become intimately familiar with a place called hell, which can be right here, baby. But it's not separate. Satan literally means the deceiver. It's the deceiver. We get deceived by our senses. We get deceived by our judgment. We get deceived by our projections, by our perceptions. And I don't care what you call it or how you name it, but it isn't that there's a separate entity out there trying to ruin your life. I want you to catch that. When we believe that, we give up our will and our volition. When we believe that, we lose our power. When we believe that, we give our power to other things. The universe wants you to succeed. Life wants you to succeed. Life is not more glorified because there are people who won't love, or people who lack compassion, or people who are living in fear. This does not glorify. Life is just waiting for more life. Life is waiting for a yes. Love is just waiting for a yes. Creativity is waiting for a yes. Forgiveness is waiting for a yes. Power, everything is just waiting for a yes. So this willing, you say, well, I don't want to be willing because I don't like what's going on. I'm not talking about what's going on. Listen to what I'm saying. What we see is just a small fraction of reality. From a quantum physics standpoint, what we see is less than 0.00001% of energy. Most of energy is invisible. It's mainly wave. What we see are the little particles. It would be like saying, when you hear a song, that song is just like a little smidgen of music. There's more music than just that song. Are you with me? So if you want to be creative, if you want to make music, and you want to be open to music, you don't focus on all the songs that have been. As a songwriter, I don't go back and say, oh my God, I've only written 2 songs in my life. So how do I squeeze a 3rd song out of these 2? How do I get a 3rd song out of these 2? No. You go to that place of the potentiality. You go to the place of all the music. Are you with me? And you pull from there. And you take some of that invisible potentiality, and you bring that into form. If we're needing more love and experiencing more love, stop going back to your old relationships. Like old songs, trying to analyze them to death and figure out, how can I get a little bit more love, a little bit more joy out of that old song? And even if it's a beautiful song that you love, I'm not saying you got to get rid of it, but all of the rest of the music ain't going to come from that song. So all of the rest of the love and everything that's available to you isn't going to come from what you've already experienced. The willing part is about going to the place of pure potentiality. That's the willingness. The willingness isn't saying, well, I just gotta get to the point where everything that's going on, you just want me to wallow in that and give up my ability to make decisions and take charge, and you just want me to wallow in this crap. I don't like this crap. I'm not willing because I don't want to be in this crap. What I am saying is don't fixate on the crap that you're in. What I'm saying is be willing to imagine, be willing to tap into the vibration that there's something that's beyond this. That's your inner activity. That's your job. See, most of us don't want to shift the inner activity till I can see something in the outer. You're not going to see it. You have no idea of what's available to you. You have no idea of what can happen. We can't even imagine it. Look at your life now. Think back 10 years ago. Could you have imagined the stuff that's happened in the last 10 years? You don't know. And you don't have to know. You don't have to know the outer picture. When we ask you to do dream boards and vision boards and affirmations and all of the rest of that, that's only to cultivate the inner activity of possibility, not to get fixated on the picture. You hear what I'm saying? Don't get fixated on that particular thing. Just allow that to open you up to the expansiveness to what all could be possible. This or something better. This is where your willingness has to come in, where you're willing to look beyond so you don't give where you are the last word. When I look at my life, the things that have made the biggest difference in my life, the things that I would say have made me grow the most and really had me step into my authenticity, I did not want. I was not willing to have any of it. And if I had been able to use my willfulness, I'd have skipped right over it. Because I'm telling you now, if I had had my way, none of us would be here today. I wasn't going to do it. Oh no. I was not going to be a minister, and I certainly wasn't going to have no church. No way. No. Can you read these lips? And to be back and to have this was a Pentecostal church. I just cried. Just fell on my knees and cried when I first came in this place, because we knew it was ours. And it was that, I don't believe this. All the way around the mulberry bush. Assemblies of God was as close as you could get to the Church of God in Christ that I grew up in. Just one's black, one's white. They used to be together, but then they split. It's like the hero's journey. You wouldn't want to, who would choose to go up against the dragons? Who wants dragons? But it's going to lead you right on back to you. Last week, we had our Willful Garcia here, who, by the way, sent me a text last night to say hey to everybody. He said he's gotten so much response from social media because him coming here. This was his first public anything, okay? So for those of you who weren't here, we do a lot of prison outreach work, and this is a guy who got out 6 weeks ago from San Quentin. He's been a lifer 35 years of his life he spent beyond bars from a kid. He's 65 now, and this last stint was 18. And he worked with us at Pleasant Valley State Prison. And, you know, he's now over the San Quentin News, and just really great things that are going on, you know, in his life. Did I want to do prison work? When I got the call from Pleasant Valley State Prison from these two guys, the guy that was over music and arts and the Muslim chaplain, I thought it was the Nation of Islam. I didn't know it was the Muslim Americans, but I really thought it was like the black Muslims, the nation. I wasn't up on my history to know that they had split too in these two different groups. And it's a male prison. And I'm thinking to myself, me. Y'all want me. Woman, pastor, openly gay, blah, blah. You want me to come up with the Nation of Islam males in prison. And I honestly did this. And it's the only time in my life I've ever done it. I looked up and I said, what are you smoking, God? What are you smoking? Because in my heart, I knew that no matter what I thought I was going to go, I just knew in my bones it was that. Did I want to do that? No. And I know how judgmental I used to be about guys like Arnulfo before I met them. When women would tell me, because there's a lot of brothers locked up, and when women would tell me, you know, that they're corresponding or they've fallen in love with some guy in prison or they're about to marry some dude that just out of prison, I mean, honestly, I used to think, are you that desperate? Really? I mean, I'm being for real. I was like, I know pickings is slim, but really? Really? And I'm telling you now, some of the most powerful, beautiful human beings I've ever met in my life. And I get it. But I'd have missed all that. Are you with me? But because I was willing, because I knew enough about the spiritual journey to know that the more bizarre it seemed, the more it had my name on it. Really, the more out there it was from my comfort zone, and particularly if it was taking me up against my oneness issues. Are you with me? If it was taking me up against, you know, whatever, my judgment, and you know, it's more that supremacy stuff. I was guilty that somehow or another, you know, I had myself above. I wasn't conscious of it. I'm ashamed to say it, particularly one doing prison reform, social justice work. But there was still some internal whatever that was going on. Okay? If I had exercised my willfulness, I'd have never gone. If I exercised my willfulness, I would have never returned to ministerial school after 10 years to finish and to do this. You know, I would have never done that. But because I was willing, did you catch that? And the willing wasn't about an outer picture. Because I didn't have a picture about prison. I didn't have all that. What I was willing to do was to suspend my judgment. That's the willingness. That's the inner activity. I was willing to suspend my doubt. I was willing to give the universe some credit for saying that there is some order and that there is some reason. And if this door is opening up for me, that maybe I should have the courage enough to walk through it. Okay? Not shut it or say no because it doesn't meet my calling. Okay? You don't know where your good's going to come from. You don't know. And time again in life, I've been up against that situation of having to choose between my good and my judgment. I remember there was a particular suite here. My former partner and I were going to set up her practice there. And it turned out that the owner of this complex, this was like 25 years ago or something like that, and the owner of this complex was one of the doctors who was in the lead of the quarantine people with HIV movement. I'd never met him, but I knew his work, and as an AIDS activist, I had been up against that. So there was that part of me that's like, I don't give him my money. You know, I don't want to rent from this. Wait a minute. Whoa, hold it, Lord. And just had to listen. Just had to listen. And everything said, go there. Go there. You're going to influence each other. You get that? Go there. And he was wonderful. The way he built that suite and did all these things. And there grew to be less of the division. Are you with me? Less of the estrangement. Less of the, like us versus them. There was a healing that took place. Okay? But I had to be willing. I don't know what it's going to look like in your life specifically, but I can tell you what I do know, that there are going to be some times when opportunities are going to come up for you to have to be in fellowship with some folks you don't want to be in fellowship with, or to collaborate with, or to stretch out and try some things that you're convinced you can't do, or that it can't be done. Like, I don't know what it looks like. But there are these famous words from Scripture that are attributed to Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. The way the story goes is that after the Last Supper, when he was sold out, and he knew what was going to happen. It was another one of those instances where he stole away. He went away to this garden. And it was there he was captured. And in the quote says that he says, if this bitter cup could pass from my lips, that's what I'd want. That's what I'd want. However, not my will, but thine be done. If doing this thing I don't want to do is going to serve a higher purpose that's more in alignment with my purpose and who I am and what's supposed to happen, then so be it. And that's a regular prayer of mine. That's my surrender prayer. Not my will, but thine be done. That's that formula. That's where my inner activity starts to become one with Spirit's outer volition, outer choice. Not my will, but thine be done. That's what I use to help me move to that place. And although I most oftentimes, didn't find the journey comfortable, the places where it led me, I can hear Maya Angelou now. It wouldn't take nothing for my journey now. Would I have wanted to go through those circumstances? No. But the person I have become, the things I have learned, the places of compassion and growth and courage and strength and faith, I wouldn't want to go back to being ignorant and scared again, or mealy-mouthed, or unsure, or doubtful. I don't want to be that person again. I wish that all of our lessons were gentle. I wish that our lessons didn't stretch us beyond capacity. All I know is whether it's illness or death or whatever, divorce, financial stuff, conflict in the house, political drama, whatever that stuff is we're going through, that if we're willing to have an interactivity that says, I'm going to hang in here because there's something better. I'm going to tap into that 99.99999% of the universe that's pure potentiality. It's like the pure love. It's like the pure music that's just waiting for my yes. And if you can tap into that, you will experience a joy and the peace that passes all human understanding. That's a promise. Take a breath. That's a promise. Take a breath. Muna.